Alright, Chapter 2 Summary. Note that you have the complete with this chapter short review of the most important points covered in this chapter will follow the review of the refresh your memory of the transistor theory of the operation and how they tested with the ammeter transistor, three more elements, solid state device amplifies controlling the flow of the current flow called the carrier of the semiconductor materials, and also the three elements for the transistor emitter which give the current of the carriers, the base for the current which control the carriers, and the collector which collect for the carriers, collector emitter of the base type of the transistor, negative positive negative. The only difference is in the symbology of the type of transistor, direction of the arrow, the emitter of the arrow points, and the positive negative transistor, and outwards for the negative positive transistor. Show the emitter, non-positive, the emitter of the positive, negative. The four transistor manufacturing processes are point of contact, grown of the grow to wraith, grown junction, alloy, fused junction, diffuse junction. Proper basing of the transistor enable the transistor to be used the amplifier to function with its capacity emitter to the base, and over the transistor forward bias while the base of the collector joint is reversed and bias. The negative positive negative transistor operation basically action relatively smaller emitter base bias the voltage controlling relatively large emitter of the collector and current positive negative positive transistor operation essentially the same. The negative positive operation except for the nature of current carries the whole of the bias of the batteries are reversed. Amplification of the process will increase the strength of the signal amplifier the device that provides the amplification without appreciable altering the original signal. Basic transistor amplifier. So amplifiers reduce the large chain with the collector current with the small chain with the base for the current of the action with the voltage amplification becomes the load of the resistor because in the sister series of the collector reactive with the large change of the collector current within the turn of the resultant large variation in the output of the voltage. The three types of bias are either properly biased transistor current are base current bias or fixed bias, self bias, and combination bias. Combination bias is one of the most widely used because it improves circuit stability at the same time times overcomes some of the disadvantages of the base current and bias and self bias. The class of amplifier operation determine the portion of the input signal for which there is an output of the four classes for the amplifier operation. The class A, B, and B and C is the sure their input waves. They are notice that the black is the area of no condition. Cutoff occurs with the base emitter prevents the current from flowing. The emitter circle through the positive and negative positive transistor. It becomes positive with respect to the emitter hole and repel with the emitter base junction that prevents the current flow into the collector circuit. The saturation and the curve of the positive positive transition becomes so negative with respect to the emitter that change the signal and are not reflective of the current collector current flow. Class A amplifiers are based on biased with the variation input with the signal and the polarities occur within the line cutoff of the saturation biasing amplifier with the manners to allow the collector current and the flow of the direction of the complete circle with the 360 degrees input classifier input signal that provides an output with a replica of the input with 180 degrees out of phase. The class A operated with amplifiers UV the audio radio frequency amplifiers radio radar and sound system. Class AB is biased with the collector of the current zero, the cutoff of the portion of one of the alteration input signal. Therefore, the current collector will follow more than 180 degrees, but less than 360 degrees input signal. The Class AB amplifiers commonly use the push-pull amplifier to overcome the side effects of the Class B operations. Class B amplifiers are based on the collector current with a cutoff during one half of the input with the signal. Thus, the Class B collector current will flow approximately 100 degrees half of the input signal. The Class B operated with the amplifiers use the audio amplifier, sometimes the drive power amplifier stages transmitter. Class C amplifiers are based with the current collector flow for the one half of the cycle of the input signal. With the Class C operated operators use the radio frequency amplifier transmitters. Fidelity and efficiency. There are two terms of the conjunction amplifier. Fidelity is the faithful reproduction of the signal. Efficiency is the ratio of the output signal compared to the total input power. The Class A amplifier with the highest degree of the fidelity of the Class C amplifier has the shortest efficiency transistor configuration. It is particular with the transistor connected in circuit, but the transistor may be connected in one of three different configurations: common emitter, common base, and common collector. Common emitter configurations most frequently use the configuration practical amplifier circuit with this since it provides good voltage for the current and power gain. The input of the common emitter is applied with the base emitter circuit with the output with the take of the common electro emitter circuit with the making the emitter with the element common to both the input and output. The common emitter is set apart with the other configurations because of the only configuration provided with the phase reversal between the input and output signals. The common base configuration is mainly used for the impedance matching since it is low input resistance, high output resistance. It is also current with a gain less than 1. The common base input implied with the emitter with the output. It is taken with the collector and the base is the element with the common of both the input and output. And you have the common collector current configuration. You have the current derived with the impedance matching, particularly useful in switching circuit with the common collector configuration, also referred to as an emitter followed with equivalent electron tube cathode, but have the input with the impedance of the low output. Impedance for the common collector is applied with the base. The output is taken with the emitter of the collector as the element with the common both the input and output. Alright, gain is the term to describe the amplification capability of the amplifier, basically ratio of the output to input of the current gain of the three for these transistor configuration, common base, common emitter, common collector, alpha, beta, and gamma, respectively. Alpha is equal to the amps of the collector over the amps of the emitter. Beta is equal to amps over the collector over the amps of the base, and gamma is equal to amps of the emitter over the amps of the base. The transistor configuration comparison chart gives the runs down with a different property for these configurations. Transistor characteristics are usually presented with a specification sheet. These sheets usually cover the following items: the kind of the transistor, absolutely maximum resisting of the transistor, the type, typical operating value of the transistor, additional energy, engineering design information. Transistors identify the Joint Army Navy designation printed directly on the case of the transistor dial with the valve of the transistor. Making markings always replace the transistor with have identical markings or consult and equipment transistor manual to ensure the identically replacement of the substitute is needed. The number of junction, the transistor, the semiconductor identification number, first modification. Testing a transistor to determine if the good or bad of the done with the omni of the transistor tester is by a substitution method. The precautions should be taken when working with the transistor since they are susceptible to damage by electrical overloads, heat, and humidity and radiation. Transistor lead identification plan is an important part of the transistor maintenance trend because the transistor can be tested and replaced and leads must be identified. Since there is no standard method of identifying transistor leads, check some of the typical identification schemes or a transistor manual before attempting to replace the transistor. Transistor gain set that can be viewed with the multimeter with a simple test circuit with the principle behind the test live with the fact that the line little or no current will flow with the transistor between the emitter and the collector until the emitter base junction the forward bias. And 10 to 1 resistance ratio between the two meters for indicating normal gain. Transistor junction resistance test can be also made with the ammeter measuring the base emitter base collector emitter forward reverse resistance. Microelectronics board, the term used to describe the integrated circuit with a miniaturized electronic printed circuit board is a flat insulating circuit in which the printed wiring and miniaturized components are connected to the predetermined design attached to a common base. Modular circuitry attached assembly technique with the printed circuit board is stacked and connected together to form a module. The techniques increase the packaging density with the current circuit components result in a considerable reduction in the size of the electronic equipment. Integrated circuit with the device and the integrated is combined with the active component with the transistor diodes and passive components, resistor capacitors of complete electronic circuits and signal chips. The two basic are the integrated circuit, the hybrid and monolithic. The monolithic, all elements of the resistor and transistor associated within the circuits are fabricated and inseparable with a continuous piece of material called substrate. And the hybrid integrated circuit, the passive components of the resistor capacitor deposited on the substrate foundation made of glass, ceramic, other insulating material. Then active components of the diodes and transistor are attached to the substrate connected to the passive components over the using fine wiring. And that was Chapter 2 summary.